I'm Emily Mashak, and you're listening to Tuned Into NoCo, Town Square Media's show that lets you know what matters in NoCo. I'm talking today with Brad Hoops, the founder of Remember and Honor. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Emily.
Before we get into Remember and Honor itself, I would like to talk a little bit about you. How did you get involved with our veteran community here in Northern Colorado?
Well, I've always had a love of interest. It's really kind of a perfect storm of interest for me. I love history. I should have been a history major instead of a business major, but I digress. I've always had a respect for veterans and just a total awe of, and I've always loved learning about people and their backstories. And it was about 2003, I saw an article where the Library of Congress is starting a program to preserve the stories of veterans. And I thought, well, why not try to do something on the local level to feed this program? So I went out, bought a video camera, and just started interviewing veterans.
Yeah, and would you be able to elaborate a little more on what exactly Remember and Honor is and how you share these stories?
Yeah, it's a program, like I said, I just set out to preserve the stories of veterans. It's kind of like a 60 Minutes type interview with the veterans. I sit down and capture their story, capture any pictures that they'd like on this interview, and then put it all down on video. Used to be in a DVD. I'm not quite sure where we're going to go with that now that DVDs are on the way out, and just something so that they and their families will always have their stories preserved. That's the primary objective. A secondary objective is, with their permission, I donate a copy to their local library or museum, Colorado State's Morgan Library, the World War II Museum down in New Orleans if they're a World War II veteran, and then, of course, the Library of Congress. And just recently, I started a YouTube channel so I can start uploading these videos so that the general public can watch them.
Yeah, so what is that YouTube channel so people can find it?
Well, you could just look under Remember and Honor. You got to kind of scroll for a while to find that, but probably the quickest way to get it is to type in the link bit.ly/Remember and Honor Stories.
Perfect. And now when I was looking on your website, I saw that your mission is to honor, entertain, and inform NoCo veterans. What inspired you to come up with this mission, and what does that mean to you?
Well, that was the mission for the magazine. I published a magazine for about a year and a half, a veterans magazine, until COVID killed that off, unfortunately. But the mission, like I said, I started out simply just to record the stories of veterans and get their stories down. But as I heard more and more of these stories, it was just so apparent to me that we owe these people so much. And it just expanded from there to honoring and helping veterans in any way I possibly could.
Yeah. And in your time that you've been doing these stories, how have you seen them really make an impact on either the Northern Colorado community or the veteran community specifically?
That's a good question, because like I said, once again, when I first started out, I just wanted to get the stories down. I thought, the benefactor of this was going to be the families of the veterans, because oftentimes your veteran didn't talk about it. About their story, which has proven to be the case. But it wasn't too far into the project where the trajectory kind of took a sharp turn, and I realized it wasn't just the families it was benefiting. I'd gotten a call the morning after interviewing a World War II veteran. His wife called me the next morning and said, I just want to thank you for doing this interview. The kids and I, we don't know his story, and we're anxious to hear about it. But she goes, I also want you to know that last time was the first time in 60 years he'd slept through the night. So he had stuff to get off his chest. And I've seen that time and time again. And the other end of the trajectory, or the other end of the spectrum was, once again, I got a call from the wife of a Vietnam veteran. And he was kind of the poster child for most veterans. You tell them what I do, and I don't have a story. I didn't do anything, which is never the case. And so she pushed him to do this interview, and he did the interview. And of course, he had a story up until the point I turned the camera on. I didn't do anything. I don't have a story, but of course he had a great story. They all do. Everybody has a story. And she called a couple of weeks later and said, we finally sat down and watched that DVD that you sent us. She goes, I want you to know the last couple of days he's been walking around with his chest puffed out. So hopefully he realized, yes, I did have a story. So there's just multiple benefits, I think, have come from doing the interviews. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's great to hear and see that impact that you're making. And now this might be a hard question because I'm sure all of the stories are so inspiring. But do you have any that have particularly stuck out to you since you've been doing this?
Emily, I get that question all the time too, and it's like asking somebody who their favorite child is or grandchild is. Every single one of them is like I said. I have yet. I've done somewhere close to 600 interviews to date, and I think there isn't one that I haven't found amazing or interesting. Probably the crowd favorite with everybody is the story of Roy Lehman up in Fort Collins. And I went over and did his interview, and he was sitting there. He was on the front lines, and he's kind of funny. He joked. He goes, well, I was close enough to the front lines that I didn't have to wear a tie, but far enough back I didn't get shot at. And but as he was telling his story, but he followed the front lines, and he just saw all the ugliness of war, the maiming, the death, the destruction. And you could just see it in his eyes as he told this story, 65 years later. And but there was a 3-week reprieve from it all when they landed in Holland and they were put up in local families' houses, and he got to know the family he stayed with, and he got particularly close with her 8-year-old daughter. And he talked about how they played games and took walks together, and once went to visit a great general, which was General Eisenhower. And as he told that story, you could see just in his eyes how much that meant to him as well. And so that night, I was sitting there, I was processing the interview, and it's like, I got to see if I can't try to find this little girl. And so, to the testament of the power of the internet, I got online and boom, I found her and connected the two. And that's probably one of my favorite stories, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, that is awesome. And now I know our listeners will be hearing this, and I'm sure many of them either are a veteran or know a veteran. Is there a way that they can get in touch with you and connect?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. They can give me a phone call at 970-631-2027, or my email address is brad.hoops, HOOPES, at rememberandhonor.com.
And in your time doing this, what do you think our listeners need to be more aware of when it comes to the challenges that our veteran community faces? If you know a veteran, be it a relative, a neighbor, that kindly gentleman in the grocery store, ask them to tell their story. Listen to their story. It's amazing. You'll truly be amazed by what these people have done and gone through. And it isn't, that's one thing I found too with the interviews was, John Smith, you look on his records and it said he served from 1942 to 1945, but that's not entirely true. That 1945 date is not the end date. He's still serving in some way or another, sacrificing some way or another. It isn't like they went off and served, came back and put it behind them. So many of them still have lingering effects or memories that will stay with them the rest of their lives. So just appreciate and thank a veteran whenever you come across one. Yeah. And I know getting involved with Remember and Honor is a great way to do this, but you're also involved with a bunch of other veterans organizations. How can our listeners get involved as well and help out the community?
That's another thing too. There's so many great veterans organizations out there that can use not only monetary help but volunteer help out there. They're doing wonderful work for our veterans, and once again, they can certainly contact me, and I can point them in directions of various organizations for sure.
Perfect. Well, Thank you, Brad, for coming and talking to me today. It was so great to learn more about this. Is there anything else you would like listeners to know?
I just, once again, just driving home the fact that just appreciate our veterans.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brad.
Thank you, Emily.
Again, that was Brad Hoops talking about Remember and Honor. You can learn more about the project or get involved by reaching out to him at brad.hoopes@rememberandhonor.com.